Boston summer was brutal, the heat pressing down on our small apartment like a heavy hand. The air conditioning struggled to keep up, and I was at the kitchen table, wrestling with a client pitch, sweat trickling down my forehead. That's when Emily called out from the kitchen. "Alex, your mom texted." I knew it was Evelyn, my mother-in-law, always eager to insert herself into our plans. She wanted us over for my birthday celebration. I sighed, leaning back in my chair. Another birthday, another obligatory gathering. I just wanted a quiet day with Emily. But Evelyn had her own ideas. She loved playing the perfect hostess, and saying no wasn't an option. "What did you tell her?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Emily appeared in the doorway, a tired smile on her face. "I said we'd be there." "It's your birthday, Alex," she said, trying to sound cheerful. I nodded, unsurprised. Emily always went along with Evelyn's plans, even when she didn't want to. It was her way of keeping the peace, despite the tension between them. Evelyn's compliments always came with a subtle sting, a reminder of the underlying friction. I stood up, stretching, and walked over to the kitchen where Emily was rinsing a glass. The apartment smelled like lemon cleaner and the lingering heat of the day. "You sure you're okay with this?" I asked, leaning against the counter. She glanced at me, her hazel eyes reflecting the light. "It's fine, Alex. It's one day. We'll go eat some cake and come home," she said, adding with a smirk. "Besides, you know she'd never let me hear the end of it if we skipped." I laughed. That was true. Evelyn had a way of making her expectations known, turning them into polite little guilt trips that lingered. I stepped closer and put my hand on her arm, feeling the warmth of her skin. "Thanks," I said quietly. "I know it's not your favorite thing." She turned off the tap and faced me, her smirk softening. "It's your birthday. I'll survive." That evening, after a long day, I ordered us some pizza, and we ate it straight from the box on the couch. Emily's laugh was light, and it loosened something in my chest. "You think your mom will have one of those giant cakes again?" she asked. "Probably," I said, grinning. "She'll make a big deal out of it like I'm still turning 10. Emily shook her head, still smiling. "She loves that stuff." "Yeah, she does. I just wished it didn't always feel like there was a catch." The day before the dinner at Evelyn's, I was relaxing on the couch when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find a courier holding a small refrigerated box. "Alex Harper?" he asked. I nodded, and he handed me the package. I signed for it, and he left. The label read, "Mayfair Chocolates, expensive and unexpected." Emily walked in just then, arms full of shopping bags. "Hey," she said, setting her bags down. "What's that?" I held it up. "No idea. Just got delivered. It's from Mayfair Chocolates." She raised an eyebrow. "Evelyn sent this." I checked the label. "Yep, guess it's an early birthday thing." Emily gave me that look, half amused, half skeptical, and I set the box on the coffee table. I grabbed a pair of scissors and cut through the tape. Inside was a sleek black velvet box filled with perfect, glossy truffles. The smell of rich cocoa filled the air. "Holy crap," I muttered, picking up the card. Evelyn's handwriting read, "Specially selected just for you." I showed it to Emily, and she scanned it, her lips pressing into a tight smile. "She went all out," she said flatly. I nodded, setting the card down. "Yeah, guess she really wants to make this birthday special." Emily turned back to her bags, and I sat there, staring at the truffles. They were almost too pretty to eat. Part of me wanted to try one right then, but I figured I'd save them for later. "You want one?" I asked Emily. She shook her head. "No, I'm good. Those are yours." There was a slight edge to her voice, but I let it go. Emily wasn't big on sweets anyway. The rest of the day passed slowly. Emily disappeared into her office, and I flipped on the TV, my mind wandering. The chocolate box sat on the table, drawing my attention every few minutes. I kept thinking about Evelyn, why she'd sent something so extravagant. She was always nice to me, but this felt off too much, somehow. By the time evening rolled around, Emily came out of her office, stretching. "I'm beat," she said, yawning. "Think I'll call it a night soon." I nodded, glancing at the clock barely past 8. "You okay?" I asked. She waved me off. "Just a long day. Deadlines." I watched her shuffle toward the bedroom, feeling a pang of guilt. She'd been pushing herself hard lately, and here I was, lounging around with a box of fancy chocolates. After she disappeared behind the bedroom door, I leaned back and stared at the box again. The house was quiet, just the low hum of the TV and the occasional car horn outside. I told myself I'd wait, maybe bring the truffles to Evelyn's tomorrow to share. But the more I looked at them, the more I wondered what they tasted like. Just one couldn't hurt, I thought. Emily wouldn't care, and Evelyn wouldn't know. I reached for the box, my fingers brushing the velvet, and hesitated. Something about it felt like a decision, though I couldn't say why. In the end, I popped one in my mouth, and the taste was incredible, rich, sweet, with a hint of bitterness. Before I knew it, I'd eaten half the box, savoring each one. I leaned back, grinning like an idiot. The game on TV was forgotten. Evelyn had outdone herself. I wondered how much they cost, probably more than I'd ever spend on myself. It was a nice thought, her going out of her way like that. Made me feel a little warm, like maybe she really did care, even if she and Emily didn't see eye to eye. I finished the last truffle, the box now a mess of crumpled wrappers and smudged velvet. I sat there, a little stunned. Whoops, I said out loud, my voice cutting through the quiet. I'd eaten the whole damn thing, every single truffle. My stomach felt heavy, but I couldn't bring myself to care. It wasn't like Emily would mind, she'd probably laugh if she saw me like this, covered in chocolate crumbs. I brushed off my shirt, tossed the empty box onto the table, and leaned back, feeling full and smug. The game ended and I flipped off the TV. The room went dark, except for the streetlights filtering through the blinds. I should have gone to bed. But I didn't move. My mind kept replaying the taste of those truffles, the way they'd surprised me with every bite. Evelyn had picked a winner, I'd give her that. I wondered how much they cost, probably more than I'd ever spend on myself. It was a nice thought, her going out of her way like that. Made me feel a little warm, like maybe she really did care, even if she and Emily didn't see eye to eye. I thought about the celebration tomorrow, Evelyn's pristine house, the fancy table setting she'd pull out, the way she'd hover over us with that forced smile. It'll be fine, I told myself again. Just a few hours. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that it wouldn't be as simple as cake and small talk. Evelyn always had a way of stirring things up, even when she didn't mean to, or maybe especially when she did. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee brewing. The rich aroma pulled me out of a heavy sleep, my head feeling fuzzy. I rolled over, blinking at the sunlight sneaking through the blinds, and saw Emily's side of the bed already empty. She was an early riser, always up before me, especially on days when she had a lot on her plate. I stretched, my joints popping, and hauled myself out of bed. Tugging on a t-shirt, I shuffled out to join her in the kitchen. She was standing by the counter, pouring coffee into 2 mugs, her hair still messy from sleep. "Morning," I said, my voice rough from sleep. She glanced over with a small smile. "Happy birthday, old man," she teased. I grinned, leaning against the doorway. "Thanks. Smells good in here." She slid a mug my way, and I took it, wrapping my hands around the warmth. The apartment was quiet, the city outside just starting to hum with Sunday traffic. I sipped the coffee, black and strong, exactly how I liked it, and felt the fog in my head start to clear. "Sleep okay?" Emily asked, watching me stir sugar into my own cup. I nodded. "Yeah, you." She shrugged. "Like a rock. You looked pretty out of it last night." I chuckled. Must have been the chocolates. They were something else. We sat at the table, sipping in comfortable silence. The empty chocolate box still sat on the coffee table in the next room. I kept waiting for her to notice, to say something, but she didn't. Maybe she hadn't seen it yet. I wasn't worried, though. She'd laugh when she found out. My phone buzzed on the counter, breaking the quiet. I groaned. "Who's that at this hour?" I muttered, getting up to check the screen. It lit up with Evelyn's name. Of course. I swiped to answer, putting it on speaker so Emily could hear. "Happy birthday, Alex." Evelyn's voice came through, bright and syrupy, the way it always was when she wanted to sound cheerful. "Hey, Evelyn, thanks," I said, leaning against the counter. "Did the chocolates arrive?" she asked. I glanced at Emily, who raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. "They did," I said. There was a pause on the other end, so quiet I thought the call dropped. Then Evelyn's voice came back, shaky, almost trembling. "What are you, serious?" Before I could laugh it off or tell her I was kidding, the line went dead. She'd hung up. I stared at the phone, confused. "That was weird," I said, setting it down. Emily looked at me, her coffee mug frozen halfway to her mouth. "Why'd you say that?" she asked, her voice sharp. I scratched the back of my neck. "I don't know. Thought it'd be funny." She didn't laugh. She set her mug down hard enough that a little coffee sloshed over the side. "Liam, that's not like her. She didn't take it well, huh?" I frowned, rubbing the back of my neck. Figured she was just annoyed I didn't gush about how great they were. Emily didn't say anything else. She just gave me that look, half amused, half something I couldn't read, and turned back to her coffee. I sat there, the silence heavy between us. Something felt off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Later that morning, as I was getting ready, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Emily's name on the screen. I picked it up, confused. "You're right here," I said, showing her. She grabbed her own phone from her pocket, frowning. "I didn't call you," she answered anyway. "Hello?" A familiar voice came through, breathless and panicked. "Alex, what did you tell my mom?" I blinked, looking at the Emily standing in front of me, who was just as confused as I was. "That you ate the chocolates," I said slowly. "Why?" There was a pause. Then her voice again, quieter. "Alex, something's wrong." The call cut out. I set the phone down, my heart starting to thud. Emily, the real Emily, stood up, her face pale. "What the hell was that?" she asked, her voice shaking. I shook my head. "I don't know. That was your voice, but you didn't call me. We're both here." We stared at each other, the air in the room feeling heavier than it had a minute ago. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Was it a prank? A glitch? But Evelyn's reaction, that tremble in her tone, it stuck with me. "Call her back," Emily said, her eyes locked on mine. She dialed, her fingers trembling, but it went straight to voicemail. "She's not picking up," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Okay, let's not freak out. Maybe she's just upset about the chocolates. It's Evelyn, she overreacts." Emily shook her head. "No, Alex. That call, my voice, it wasn't me. And Mom sounded scared, not mad." She was right. I replayed Evelyn's words in my head, the way her voice cracked. This wasn't about me teasing her. This was something else. I walked over to the coffee table, grabbed the empty chocolate box, and turned it over in my hands. The velvet was smudged, the wrapper's gone, but the label was still there. Mayfair Chocolates, Evelyn's name and address printed neatly in the center spot. "Maybe it's nothing," I said, more to myself than to Emily. "Maybe she's just being dramatic." Emily didn't answer. She was staring at her phone, her knuckles white around it. "Alex," she said quietly, "what if it's not nothing?" I didn't have an answer for that. All I knew was the morning had started out normal: coffee, a lazy Sunday, my birthday, and now it felt like something was unraveling, something I couldn't quite see yet. Emily came home early that afternoon, bursting through the door, her face pale. I was on the couch, still shaken from that weird phone call earlier. "Alex," she said, her voice trembling. I sat up, my stomach tightening. "What happened?" I asked. She crossed the room and sank into the chair across from me, her hands twisting together. "My mom just called me. She sounded terrified, kept asking if I was okay, if I'd eaten anything strange. Then she just hung up." I stared at her, trying to process it. Evelyn, terrified, that didn't fit. She was always so put together, so in control, even when she was annoyed. "Wait, slow down," I said, leaning forward. "This is about the chocolates, isn't it? What I told her this morning?" Emily nodded, her eyes wide. She wouldn't say much, just kept repeating, "You didn't eat them, did you?" Like it was life or death. My chest felt tight, and I rubbed my face, trying to shake off the growing unease. "I don't get it. I ate them, not you. Why is she freaking out about you?" That's when it hit me, not like a thought, but like a punch to the gut. My stomach twisted sharp and sudden, and it wasn't just nerves. A cold sweat broke out across my back, soaking through my shirt. I gripped the arm of the couch to steady myself. "Alex," Emily's voice cut through the haze, sharp with worry. She was on her feet now, crossing to me. "You okay?" I tried to answer, but the room tilted, the edges blurring. "I don't feel right," I managed, my words slurring. Her hands were on my shoulders, cool against my clammy skin. "Sit back," she said, pushing me gently into the cushions. But sitting didn't help. The nausea came fast, a wave so strong I doubled over, clutching my stomach. "Oh my God, Alex," Emily gasped, kneeling in front of me. I could barely focus on her face. Everything was spinning. My breath came in short, ragged bursts. "I'm calling 911, she said, scrambling for her phone. I wanted to tell her no, that I'd be fine, but the words wouldn't come. My mouth tasted bitter, metallic, and the pain in my gut was like nothing I'd ever felt: sharp, burning, relentless. I slumped sideways, my head hitting the armrest, and Emily's voice faded in and out as she shouted into the phone. "Yes, my husband, he's sick, really sick. Please hurry." The next few minutes were a blur. I kept slipping in and out of consciousness, my vision tunneling. Emily stayed with me, her hand gripping mine, her voice shaking as she tried to keep me awake. Alex, stay with me? Okay? They're coming. Just hold on. I nodded, or thought I did. My body wasn't listening. My vision tunneled further, the apartment shrinking to a pinprick of light. All I could think about was those damn chocolates. What was in them? That question looped in my head over and over as the nausea surged again. I barely made it to the edge of the couch before I threw up, a violent heave that left me gasping, my throat raw. The paramedics arrived fast, their boots thudding, voices loud and clipped. What happened? One of them asked, a guy with a buzz cut and a stethoscope around his neck. Emily's words tumbled out, frantic. He ate some chocolates last night, a whole box. Then he started feeling sick just now. Please, help him. They moved me onto a stretcher, my limbs heavy and useless. I caught a glimpse of Emily's face white, terrified, tears streaking her cheeks. I'm coming with you, she told them, grabbing her bag. They didn't argue. The ambulance ride was hell. The siren wailed, lights flashing through the windows. I lay there, strapped down, an oxygen mask pressed over my face. The paramedic beside me kept asking questions. When did I eat them? How was I feeling? But my answers were mumbles, half-formed. My stomach churned, my head pounded, and that cold sweat wouldn't stop. Emily sat near my feet, her hand on my leg, squeezing tight. You're going to be okay, she kept saying, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. I wanted to believe her, but that question kept clawing at me. What was in those chocolates? The hospital room was cold, the kind of chill that seeps into your bones no matter how many blankets they pile on you. I lay there, hooked up to an IV, the steady drip of fluid keeping me tethered to reality. My stomach still ached, a dull throb that reminded me of last night's indulgence with every breath. But the nausea had finally backed off. Emily sat beside me, her chair pulled close to the bed, her hand resting on mine. She hadn't said much since the doctor left, just kept staring at the floor, her lips pressed tight. I could tell her mind was racing, just like mine. A young doctor came in, his white coat crisp, his face serious but not unfriendly. He flipped through a chart, his eyes scanning the pages, then looked up at Emily. We've got some preliminary results, he said, his voice calm but firm. Your husband's showing signs of toxic ingestion. Not typical food poisoning, something more specific. We're running more tests to narrow it down. Toxic ingestion. The words hit me like a brick. I glanced at Emily, and her face went even paler, if that was possible. Toxic? She repeated, her voice small. Like poison? The doctor nodded, cautious. It's possible. We'll know more soon. For now, he's stable, but we need to keep him here. I swallowed, my throat dry despite the IV. Poison. That couldn't be right. Those chocolates were from Evelyn, fancy, expensive, sure, but poison. My head spun, and not just from whatever was in my system. Emily squeezed my hand, her fingers trembling. He ate a box of chocolates last night, she told the doctor, her voice lifting with surprise. A gift from my mom. Could that be it? The doctor's brow furrowed, and he jotted something down. Could be. Do you still have the packaging? Emily shook her head. I looked when we got home earlier. It's gone. I don't know where it went. I frowned, trying to think back. I was sure I'd left the empty box on the coffee table. But then again, everything after last night was a blur. The doctor left after that, promising updates. The room fell quiet again, just the faint hum of the machines and the occasional murmur from the hallway. I stared at the ceiling, the fluorescent lights buzzing faintly overhead. Emily leaned in, her voice low. Alex, this doesn't make sense. Why would my mom send you poison chocolates? I didn't have an answer for that. All I knew was the feeling of unease that had been gnawing at me since that phone call. Evelyn's panic when I said Emily ate the chocolates, it wasn't annoyance or disappointment. It was fear, real fear. Emily, I said, my voice raspy. Your mom, she sounded scared, not mad. She was terrified when she thought you'd eaten them. Emily didn't answer right away, just kept rubbing her thumb over my knuckles, her eyes distant. I know, she said finally. But why? Why would she do this? Before we could say anything else, a new voice broke the silence, a deep, steady tone from the doorway. Mr. Harper, Mrs. Harper. We both looked up. A man stood there, mid-40s maybe, wearing a plain gray suit and a badge clipped to his belt. I'm Detective Eli Moreno, he said, stepping inside. Mind if I ask you a few questions? Emily nodded, sitting up straighter. I managed a weak sure. Moreno pulled out a small notebook, his dark eyes sharp but not unkind. Hospital called us in. Suspected poisoning's not something we take lightly. Can you tell me what happened? Emily took the lead, her voice steadier now. She told him about the chocolates, how they'd come from Evelyn, how I'd eaten them all, how I'd collapsed earlier. Moreno listened, scribbling notes, his face unreadable. Anything unusual about the delivery? He asked. Emily shook her head. Just a courier, normal package, refrigerated, fancy label. He nodded, then turned to me. You feel anything before today, after eating them? I thought about it, my head still fuzzy. Not really. They were good, great, even. Didn't feel sick till this morning. He wrote that down too, then asked, and the packaging's missing. Emily nodded. Yeah, I couldn't find it. Moreno tapped his pen against the notebook, thinking, we'll need to track down that chocolate shop, see what they say. Anything else stand out to you? I hesitated, then said, Evelyn, my mother-in-law, she called this morning. Freaked out when I said Emily ate the chocolates. I was kidding, but she didn't take it like a joke. His eyes sharpened at that, and he made another note. Interesting. We'll follow up with her too. He flipped the notebook shut and slipped it back into his pocket. Rest up, Mr. Harper. We'll figure this out. He gave Emily a nod and left, his footsteps echoing down the hall. The room felt heavier after he was gone. Emily let out a shaky breath, her shoulders slumping. Poison, Alex, she whispered. This is insane. I squeezed her hand back, my mind churning. Yeah, but why? Why me? She shook her head, her eyes locked on mine. I don't know. But we need to know what's going on. Really know. While I was stuck in the hospital, Emily went home to check the security camera footage from our hallway. We needed answers, something concrete. The doctor had stabilized me, but I was still weak, my body fighting off whatever was in my system. The hospital room felt like a cage, the white walls closing in as the hours dragged on. I lay there, still hooked up to tubes, my mind stuck on Evelyn and the chocolates. Emily returned later that day, her face pale but determined. She sat down next to me, her hand gripping mine tightly. I checked the footage, she said, her voice low. The delivery was normal, just the courier dropping it off. But Alex, the box, it's gone. I left it on the table this morning, and now it's not there. My mind flashed to the day before, to the mysterious call, to Evelyn's panic. Someone took it, I said, my voice firm despite how tired I felt. Maybe Evelyn, maybe someone else. Emily nodded, her jaw tightening. We need to know who. We need proof. Just then, Detective Moreno walked in, his face serious. We've got some news, he said, flipping open his notebook. The lab results came back. It was arsenic in those chocolates. Not a small amount, either, enough to do some serious damage. Arsenic. The word hung in the air, heavy and cold. I looked at Emily, her face pale but resolute. We need to talk to my mom, she said to Moreno. Now. Moreno nodded. We've already brought her in for questioning. She's at the station. I can take you both there now if you're up for it. I pushed myself up, ignoring the ache in my limbs. I'm coming too, I said, my voice firm. Emily looked at me, concern in her eyes. But she didn't argue. She just nodded, helping me out of bed. The ride to the station was quiet, the tension in the car palpable. Emily sat next to me, her hand in mine, her grip tight. As we pulled up to the station, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. We were about to face Evelyn, to confront the truth behind the poisoned chocolates. And no matter what, we would see this through together. The interrogation room at the police station was stark and cold, a contrast to the warmth of our home. Emily and I sat across from Evelyn, her eyes red from crying, her usually pristine appearance disheveled. Detective Moreno stood in the corner, watching silently. Why, Mom? Emily's voice was steady, but I could hear the pain beneath it. Why did you do this? Evelyn looked down, her hands trembling. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she admitted. The chocolates were meant for you, Emily. I thought if you were gone, Alex would, he would need me more. The room went silent. The weight of her confession hung heavy in the air. I squeezed Emily's hand, feeling her tremble with anger and betrayal. You tried to kill me, Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. Your own daughter. Evelyn looked up, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, Emily. I never wanted to hurt you. I wanted Alex to myself. Detective Moreno stepped forward, his voice firm. Evelyn Lancaster, you're under arrest for attempted murder. He read her rights as she sobbed quietly. Emily and I left the station hand in hand, the truth laid bare between us. The road to healing would be long, but we were determined to face it together. We moved away from Boston, starting anew in a quiet town where the shadows of the past couldn't reach us. The trial was swift and brutal, but justice was served. Evelyn was sentenced, and we began to rebuild our lives, stronger and more united than ever.